How's it going, everybody? My name is The Stark, so welcome to a brand new The Last of Us Factions and PlayStation News video. Today, we're covering some information that's been kind of floating around on Twitter and on the internet regarding Hermen Hulst, who states that there will be at least a year between PlayStation console and PC game releases, with exception to live service games. Those will be day and date with PC and console in a recent interview that Hermen did with a YouTuber. Now, what's really interesting about this specific interview and the sentence in particular is that PlayStation's, I guess, cultural shift, which we've noticed over the course of a year or two now, that a lot of these PlayStation exclusive games are re-releasing on PC. I made a video about this, I believe a year ago, in regards to Uncharted 4, for instance, where I said I didn't really support Sony's PlayStation's decision with having Uncharted 4. It was a rumor at the time, and then later confirmed with Uncharted 4 going on PC, because one, it doesn't really make sense in terms of story, because all the other previous games aren't on PC. But also it just doesn't, it seems like a weird shift. Imagine Nintendo doing something like that. But in terms of live service games, what's really interesting about this is, as we know, I guess live service games like Destiny 2, Apex Legends, Fortnite, these very big, large multiplayer games with the intention of keeping players engaged through constant updates regarding the game and ensuring customer feedback is being improved and implemented on a daily, not obviously daily, because there's not always daily updates, but on a monthly update, I would say, is that The Last of Us 2 Factions, The Last of Us Factions 2 is going to be a live service game. It is one of Naughty Dog's most ambitious, specifically multiplayer titles, and obviously Naughty Dog has the intention of reaching and ensuring that there is huge gamer engagement and that people are engaged and are satisfied by not only the gameplay but the economy system in the game. And it's going to be a live service game. I think we're going to have some form of battle royale stuff as well, and it's going to be huge. With that said, though, Hermen said that these PlayStation, with the exception, rather, to live service games. Now, The Last of Us Factions 2 is going to be a live service game. So that could mean that The Last of Us Factions 2 is going to be releasing on both PlayStation as well as PC hardware on the same day, which is crazy because a few years ago that idea was really never entertained. And that's what I mean by cultural change. It's been recent where we've seen this change in PlayStation's, I guess, strategy. And I don't know if that's going to work for them at the end, but we'll see. I have an article here, though, by SaltWire, and it says PlayStation eyes new investment for PC mobile push. Now, this was released a few hours ago, about 9-10 hours ago, and there's a particular excerpt in this article that states, further investments in areas that will strengthen the expansion onto PC, onto mobile, and into live services. That's definitely a possibility for us, Hermen Hulst, head of PlayStation Studios, told Reuters in an interview without providing further detail on that point. Sony, whose studios are known for single-player console games such as Spider-Man, Uncharted, God of War, The Last of Us, etc., has outlined ambitious plans to release titles on PC and mobile and offer live service games which provide continuous updated play, which I alluded to earlier in my breakdown of live service and what that really means. The radical shift is reflected in its recent deals, including the 3.6 billion acquisition of Bungie, the studio behind the multiplayer Destiny franchise, which Sony operates outside its PlayStation Studios network. And there's a lot more. So actually, there's a few more points that I'm going to read on this article. So here's another one. You should think of collaborations on the game development side first and foremost, but it's also not unthinkable with our PlayStation productions efforts that we explore more opportunities, Hulst said of the From Software investment. So obviously there is this cultural change in PlayStation and the way they view a lot of this exclusivity. And I think my initial disappointment, and still continues to be my disappointment with PlayStation, is that what purpose is it for me to buy and go out and buy your PlayStation 5 console if in a year from now you're going to just re-release God of War Ragnarok on the PC, right? And I just don't know if this change in the way they think about their exclusivity will help benefit and incentivize and encourage gamers across the globe who aren't just PlayStation fans but are just gamers in general. Would that effort be enough to incentivize people to go out and buy PlayStation if there's really no exclusivity or very limited exclusivity? And I think that's why Nintendo still is one of the largest out there in comparison to Xbox as well as PlayStation. And I think PlayStation's still great and strong, as is Xbox, but nonetheless, I think Nintendo has it down pack. And that's not to really insult Hermen or PlayStation or their change here, but I'm more intrigued. As a Last of Us fan, as a Last of Us Factions fan, I want Factions to succeed, and if ultimately that means having Naughty Dog's next Factions title release day one on both PlayStation hardware as well as PC, will allow their game to really thrive and finally reach that potential and number of external gamers on the PC market. That is, if that is what it's gonna take for Naughty Dog to find that multiplayer success, then I'm for it. I am, because it's gonna help a studio that I've been a fan of for the better part of over a decade now. And it's obviously there's gonna be a lot more reach. Do I agree with Sony's greed and double dipping, especially with re-releasing God of War, Uncharted 4, and other titles like Horizon Zero Dawn and Death Stranding on the PC market? Absolutely not. Because I think at the end of the day, people buy PlayStation hardware, at least the fans buy it for their hardware, for the exclusive features and the exclusive softwares. If I wanted to play Uncharted 4 on PlayStation 5, but I already have a PC and it's on PC, why would I buy a PlayStation 5, right? So, and that's what I mean, where it's like they really need to, and obviously Sony is a multi-billion-dollar company, so they don't need to double dip, yet they are, because they see that potential reach. And if their executives and the people who are strategizing this business model really sees the reach and the potential for revenue, then it is what it is. Me as a fan, as a consumer, and as an opinionated consumer who really disagrees with this shift in video in the way they're viewing their exclusive games and content, if I can't influence that, right, ultimately, and people seem to be very neutral or celebrating and encouraging it, and that's fine. I don't necessarily agree with that, but like I said, Last of Us is really near and dear to my heart, as is Naughty Dog, and Santa Monica Studios and all the other exclusive titles, and video game companies that really work under the PlayStation umbrella. If ultimately they'll see a lot more success, driving more revenue, but also encouraging multiplayer, because you got to think about it. There's really not a lot of exclusive PlayStation 5 multiplayer titles, or rather games that release with multiplayer modes. Like Spider-Man didn't have that. Horizon Zero Dawn, as far as I'm aware, didn't have that. But then again, I never really played much of that game. I wasn't a huge fan of Horizon Zero Dawn whatsoever. God of War, still, as far as I'm aware, does not have multiplayer. I think the second one had a little bit of multiplayer, but I'm not 100% sure. Ratchet and Clank, I don't believe that has multiplayer either. You look at Ghost of Tsushima, that actually does have multiplayer, but I don't think a lot of people play it. It's not scaled to the point where something like Uncharted 4 was. But then you look at how strong Naughty Dog is as a leading competitor in the PlayStation space, and if ultimately they're not reaching a really high number of volume players, even though Factions and Uncharted and 4 is still actively played by huge amounts of people in the PlayStation ecosystem in general, if releasing these games on PC really enhances that engagement, then it is what it is, right? And there's not much I can say or do to stop that, and I encourage that if it's going to help boost those numbers and that engagement and help Naughty Dog and Sucker Punch Studios and Santa Monica and all these other Insomniac Games, for instance, and all these other PlayStation console or studios to really find their voice and really, I guess, capitalize on this PC market. Ultimately, if that's what they want to do, which is what they're gonna do, then it is what it is. I still don't support Sony's inherent principles, which is here. Obviously, it's to generate more revenue and get more money. They're a company. That's their end goal ultimately. But at what cost, right? Because I feel like this business model really contradicts. It's like, sure, you're generating more money and you're helping these studios and your own brand, but ultimately you're also kind of devaluing your console by not encouraging people to necessarily go out and buy it, because you got to look at exclusivity. If I can get something else, if I can get a video game or another, let's not talk about video games. Let's say just a general product. If I can get another product for the same quality on a platform I already own, what purpose is it for me to buy into your specific exclusive platform? And ultimately, they want people to buy. Obviously, Sony loses money on hardware all the time, but I just don't know if this model will really work for them at the end run. But ultimately, we'll see how it goes. And I'm really excited. I really am. I can't believe I'm saying this. I am a PC gamer. Well, I shouldn't say I'm a PC gamer. Most of my gaming I do on PC in comparison to PlayStation. I know on my Uncharted 4 video, a lot of people gave me crap for ridiculous reasons. A lot of these PC weirdos. But I in general, I tend to play a bulk of my games on PC, and that's what's funny to me. It's like, I as a fan, I see the value in exclusiveness. I see the value in exclusivity, and ultimately, if others can't, that's fine. But that's what I see. But I'll leave those opinions a little reserved on the side, because I am also a fan of PlayStation and their studios, such being Naughty Dog and Insomniac Games, Santa Monica Studios, for instance, who generously follows me on Twitter. So shout out to Santa Monica Studios for following me on Twitter over a year ago. But anyway, and if ultimately re-releasing these games on PC just generates more money for them so they can do other things, it is what it is. And I'm really excited in particular for Factions 2, because I want it to be reached by a larger audience. And if ultimately they release this on just PlayStation 5, they're not going to get that audience on PS4, because there's an outstanding number of PlayStation 4 users still on that ecosystem, whereas PlayStation 5, there's not as many. At least I don't think so. I haven't really looked at the numbers, but there is a large amount of players on PlayStation 4 still. And if Naughty Dog is going to release a Factions 2 exclusive on PlayStation 5 and only, they're not going to reach a lot of people at all. So releasing on PC as well will really help generate not only buzz for the company, but encourage PC fans to finally tap into the video game gods that Naughty Dog are. And if ultimately that's what it takes, it is what it is, and I guess we'll see what happens. But that's just my 2 cents on this whole live service games. The last was Factions 2. Hermen Hulst, who's the head of PlayStation Studios, and all the buzz that's been generating on Twitter regarding that. So I wanted to make a quick video on this, because I made a video similar to this last year, which got a lot of mixed reactions for whatever reason. But I'm excited and hopeful that PlayStation doesn't really takes their time to honor the studios that make games for them, and not just for the sake of re-releasing it on PC to generate more money. And I guess that's just my 2 cents. But I'm curious to know your thoughts in the comment section below. So leave them in the comment section, and your thoughts on exclusivity, live service games releasing on PC as well as console, especially with the like I mentioned earlier, with the with Sony PlayStation acquiring Bungie, which, as we know, released Destiny and Destiny 2 in that franchise, which is huge on games or on consoles in general, but also PC. And your thoughts on The Last of Us Factions 2. Do you believe that this is only going to be a PlayStation 5 and 4 title, or do you think Naughty Dog and PlayStation are going to do something a little different and release The Last of Us Factions 2 on not only PlayStation but also PC? Let me know in the comment section below. And with that being said, I have been the Starks. Peace.